Hi, welcome to SHOWstudio. We're going to be discussing the Man Autumn Winter 18 show this evening and also talking wider topic and asking, is menswear modern? But before we start going, Connor, we'll start with you for the introductions.
Hi, I'm Connor J. O'Brien. I study at LCF, final year, menswear.
Hi, I'm Poppy. I'm a fashion student at Westminster and currently interning at Martine Rose.
Hi, I'm Joshua Crabtree. I'm a final year student at the University of Westminster, currently working on my graduate collection.
Hi guys, I'm Marijn and I'm a MA Fashion Journalism student at Central St. Martin's.
Awesome, thank you guys for coming in, especially on a Monday. I want to get to know you guys a little bit more before we go straight into the Man Show. So tell me a little bit about your courses and what you're creating at the moment, and yeah, Josh, I'll start with you because I know you're in the throes of it right now.
Yeah. So I'm currently working on my graduate collection. The way the course at Westminster is structured, they've shuffled it around this year. So we've been fortunate enough to have the opportunity to show our graduate collections at London Fashion Week in February. They've made the changes to sort of bring the course more into alignment with how the industry actually works, because the show used to be in May, which is sort of at a time when nothing else is really going on. So I'm currently about a month away from finishing my collection, so it's all very sort of all systems go at the moment, let's say, kind of working with factories and having seamstresses sewing and just like working around the clock to try and get everything done to like a standard that I'm happy with, kind of thing. So yeah.
So you'll be showing with the women's shows?
Yeah, so we're going to be the first BA like course to show at like a major fashion week, and we'll be showing, it's like officially on the schedule, I think it's the 16th of February that the show's on, and it's like a really good opportunity to actually get some kind of coverage and get your name out there and get people to sort of see what you've been working on for months, because it sort of is your life and you're sort of expressing yourself and really sort of working towards an end goal sort of thing. So it's going to be really good to actually finish and for everybody to see what I've been spending the last 6 months hiding away in my room being really antisocial doing, kind of thing. So
and what have you been hiding away for the past 6 months in your
just like sampling, like
well, I mean, what's your aesthetic?
My aesthetic is very industrial, so I've got a lot of kind of heavy-duty industrial fabrics in my collection. So I'm using tarpaulin, I'll be using rubberized cotton, and marrying it up alongside some more conventional kind of tailoring fabrics. So I've got some like shirting, some traditional kind of tailoring silhouettes, and then some that have just sort of been pushed a little bit, so like really like wide leg trousers, and I'm hoping to get some hats and some accessories made as well, and I'm currently in the process of making shoes because I want my collection not just to be about the clothes, but to create, I think a really effective show creates a mood and like a big sort of, like you look at it and you're like, the clothes are nice, but the music and everything contributes to like the setting and how you make people feel. And it's almost like performance art in a sense for me. Like, although I love fashion, it's about being like a successful designer is about being able to create that mood and kind of like make people feel something as well as them looking at something that might be like a beautifully made garment. So, yeah.
Connor, do you agree with that?
I agree 100%. I think it's always kind of important to think about not just the vibe of everything, but how something can be made so beautifully. And you've really got to think about the process of how something is going to kind of be a piece that someone can treasure really and take forward through their life. So yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your course and what you're doing.
So I'm at LCF, I study menswear there, and I really enjoy it. It's been a process, I think. I've never really done it the way that they wanted me to do it, and it wasn't funny then, but it is funny now. My tutors make a laugh out of it. But I feel like in the process I didn't go the way that they wanted to. I learned a lot about myself and about what I want to do, and it's ultimately, I think, has made my aesthetic a lot different from what I see every day in the studio, and which is what I really enjoy. I kind of found myself kind of lost in East London night scene for about 2 years, and you do, if that's what you're interested in. And I kind of looked into sort of my icons, and I grew up in a small town in Cheshire, not too far away from where Isabella Blow's country house is, And that was actually the first thing that kind of brought me into fashion when I was a kid, was going to the Fashion Galore exhibition at Somerset House.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so from that moment, I feel like, I don't know, she's always kind of been my favourite. So that's ultimately where my collection's going. And I'm kind of inspired by Isabella and kind of the idea of someone being so extroverted but all armoured at the same time. And I like the idea of making something that could be classed as feminine into something really quite masculine in a way. And that's where I'm heading.
Sounds good. Quite different vibes I'm getting. And Bobby, you're interning at Martine, is that correct?
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting what you said about presenting yourself and like how you present yourself in your clothes. And I don't think that's actually explored enough at uni. I think there's so much to do and so much emphasis on making clothes. You don't really have enough time to figure out what you want to present and what you're trying to say.
100%, yeah.
Which is why I'm interning now, because I just can't do it all at the same time. And I feel like I've always been interested in sportswear, women's wear probably, but I've explored both.
How have you explored both?
Well, I did like 6 months of menswear, 6 months of women's wear in my first year. And like, I found them, I was able to explore a lot within both. And I've always preferred menswear designers throughout my life. I've never been inspired by women's wear designers really, but I don't think that means I'm necessarily wanting to design for men. So I think the attention to detail, and I think for the last 5-6 years, men's sportswear has been so like on trend. I think that's, and it's always drawn me to menswear, but I don't think that necessarily means that you're a menswear designer. I don't think there's the same going on in menswear.
Well, that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit today. So Man and a lot of the brands that show at Man aren't necessarily, to the outsider, menswear or masculine, or in a generic term of both of those things. So I want to talk about menswear and the modernity of menswear and what you guys think is modern menswear. And you're the communications boss at the table. So modern menswear to you, what do you think? What does it mean to you personally?
Oh, God.
Sorry, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I knew that was going to be the question, but I guess menswear, modern menswear is like looking up the boundaries at the moment. I think that's what really is about. And especially, for example, at art school, looking at the like blurring the boundaries between what's masculine and what's feminine and where it comes together. And I mean, we've seen it turn around in women's wear for quite a long time already. But I'm happy to see it in menswear as well, because I sometimes feel like it can be boring. For example, with suits, with sweaters and just jeans, I sometimes just feel like, I mean, everybody is wearing it. And then with those, I guess, feminine touches, it becomes more interesting to me. So I'm kind of hoping to see it go in that direction, really, right now.
Do you think the general public sees that as modern menswear? Because I've read a lot of articles about what modern menswear is, and it's kind of it divides the man into the suit man, the sportswear man, but it's all very much like man.
I do genuinely think that sometimes menswear can be used almost as costumes. And I feel like there's like 3 main costumes to menswear. And I do think they're right when they say that there's a sportswear man, there's a suit man, and there's a jeans and a brown shoe man. And like, it needs to change. And to me, that's what menswear should be. I don't really know what it is now, but I know that I'm not interested in it.
Okay, good to have you on the panel. So what am I trying to say to you? So do you think that the non-binary vibes of art school, or I don't think Rottingdean's quite as non-binary, but do you think that is the future of menswear?
I think it's 100% a step in the right direction, but I think it's provocative though also, and I think it would be nice for it to get to a point where they don't have to be provocative and put these items out there. I think it'd be nice to be able to have this idea that anyone could wear anything, but without being like, oh look, there's a man wearing a dress. I feel like it's a very clumsy way of getting across where we are going, and it is definitely making progress in terms of people talking about it, but I don't ultimately think that that's where it's going to stay.
No, I kind of have to agree. I think it feels more like the message behind it, really, than what is actually the direction it should be going. For example, with sequins, like I love sequins as a man. I'm not wearing them right now. I'm obsessed. It's just like, it looks like you're encrusted or something. So I kind of wish it goes in that direction, really. And what they're doing is kind of set a precedent for what direction it should be going. So I just hope that they are able to develop themselves more clearly into that aesthetic.
And it's 100% not a disrespect either from where I'm coming from. I think that I look at this and I do think it's absolutely fabulous. And I see a lot of my friends in there as well. Like, and it's nice to see the people that I used to party with becoming something that's pushing forward menswear. It's just, this is a necessary step to get to where I think it should be.
But I think how many men are going to wear this? That when I look at it, it's not a majority.
There is convertible pieces though.
Yeah.
For sure, I do.
But it's not attracting the same target market that all the other menswear designers are, and I think that's probably a good thing because I mean we don't need another of the same, you know. True.
But just going back a little bit to your education, this is not what they're teaching you at school, I'm guessing.
No.
So.
But I mean, it's because menswear is taught so rigidly, like it is. I feel that if you label yourself as menswear, there is less opportunity to experiment. Like, even if it's taught in the same class like it is Westminster, it's still like you still have to choose at the beginning of a project that you're doing menswear, and you are taught in a different way. You're asked to justify different things, and if you're women's wear, you don't have to explain why you don't have a pocket there. Whereas if you're menswear, you have to justify why you don't have a welt pocket on a suit. Like, you shouldn't have to. Necessarily.
There's a lot of ramifications between the difference between the technicality of menswear and the construction of women's wear. And I don't understand why the menswear construction has to be so proper and perfect, but also the women's wear can get away with making a jumpsuit with no pockets, because you need to make a functional garment. Like, regardless of whether it's a piece of art or not, it has to function. And if it doesn't function, then it's a showpiece. It's a piece of art only, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's important that, I don't understand why gender has to be antiquated by pockets.
I just don't understand it. So obsessed with pockets.
That's so strange.
Because if you look back at old collections from maybe 2010, 2011, and maybe even further back than that, and you look at menswear, you see a rise and decline of pockets. Like, there's just more, and then there's less, and there's more, and it's all about the pocket. And I just don't understand why.
Is that because the generic man doesn't have a handbag?
Well, I think it is because menswear is functional because you carry it all in your pockets, whereas women's...
Right. Do you find that you have to put function over?
Yeah, like my kind of ethos as a designer is, like, I'm interested in making something that looks good, but for me, like, a garment has to have a reason to exist. Like, you can spend hours and hours and hours creating something that's really, really beautiful, but again, like, it could just be a piece of art, like something that you've spent ages on that just doesn't have any place in the modern world. And I think, speaking about modernity, there needs to be sort of like the authenticity of like a traditional menswear garment and stuff for it to actually be like menswear. But I think you need to like push the boundaries, because there are only so many things that you can do within that bracket that before it starts to get a bit samey. And I think that what we're seeing here in the whole push in like gender fluidity is really, really important, because it's sort of like just like recycling ideas. Otherwise, like, you just sort of end up seeing like, I don't know, 10,000 versions of the same kind of hunting jacket or something like that. And I think it is a really, really necessary thing in order to push menswear forward.
To go on your point as well, like with women's wear, it's all about constructing for the body and to flatter the body. Whereas in menswear, you don't see quite as much of that as you do kind of hiding the body and cover it in square shapes, or fit in the iconic suit shape, or like a hunting jacket shape. It's all very like, you follow this mold to look like menswear, but what would be the difference between a man wanting something that fits and feels comfortable and plays around with construction and silhouette? Like, why is that such a problem? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's another reason why I think menswear needs to move forward.
So how do we do that? How do we, when you're being taught kind of the Savile Row rules, let's say.
Well, anyone that's learning now that's watching this, like, get your tutors to show you how to drape on stand. It's important. You need to know that if you're a menswear student, because if you don't know that, you're just flat and patterning and you're making boxes.
Yeah.
Like, you need to know how to drape.
It's still interesting to have that
Oh, of course, it's so
box
important.
guide. You
Yeah,
need
of
that to
course.
start with.
I think you get, that's the thing, is they think it is so important, and it's like the first thing that you get taught always, but then it just gets stuck there. Like you
Yeah.
need to be able, it's kind of taught as drape and then using blocks and like construction and stuff, and it's like, but you actually aren't taught the way to bring those two things together, which is when it gets interesting. It's not interesting to just say I
On paper.
only use blocks or I only drape, because then you might end up with just like whatever. It's
Yeah.
like when you learn to really consider how to bring those two together sensitively, and like that's when it becomes great.
There's a moment when if you just chuck
I don't know how you
something-
teach that.
I guess it's just you learn as much as you possibly can of all the rules and the guides, and then something needs to click in you where you just throw all of that out the window, and then you're like, right, I've learned that, and then
There's a moment you just chuck something at a mannequin and you would never be able to get that from flat patterning because you would never have seen that shape in the first place. And to be able to see that shape, then you can mark that off and it's a new thing that no one's seen before, you know? And I feel like it's really important to know how to do that.
I suppose that's what's so great about Man, is that it gives people this little window into the madness, and it's like, you can create a beautiful silk slip dress for a dude and they'll look bloody brilliant in it. So
Yeah, exactly.
with that in mind, let's actually review the show. So I wasn't there because I was doing a Cottweiler panel, so we're all looking at this with fresh eyes, which I think is quite nice. If we can start from the top, if that's all right. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so first up is art school. And I always think they're really interesting because they come from a kind of slightly different background. One of them has art criticism as a degree, which I think is really interesting. Particularly with the fact that they're just throwing caution to the wind with this amazing non-binary stuff. But take away literally everything we've just said. Take that away. On first glance, what do you think of the clothes? Maureen, I'm going to you first.
I thought actually it was quite fun. Perhaps not necessarily that inventive, but I don't know, I kind of felt like, I watched a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, so I kind of learned to like...
Don't we all?
Well, think about references, and especially one of the first two looks, they made me think about Clueless, and they made me think about Madonna, and they kind of like distilled that into something their own, I guess, so I kind of liked it, I think. And then there's another one that made me think about that Tom Cruise scene where he like slides out into his shirt and
I think
then starts dancing.
that's Princess Julia in that look.
Yeah,
Her Royal Highness Princess Julia, who looks bloody amazing. And art school they always get in amazing people to walk for them. Last year they had the Theo Adams Company, last season I should say.
That was amazing.
Totally amazing. But what do we think about this as kind of commercial? How do we...
It's what I already see when I go out in East London. It really is. Like, the silhouettes are like almost identical to what you'd see if you were to go to Metropolis or if you were to go to Cambridge Heath, Queen Adelaide. Like, people wear this.
But does that make it...
I suppose it would make it sellable because people are wearing it already, I suppose. And in a way that if no one is going to wear a full look, no one ever wears a full look from a show. And when you dissect the show, if there's wearable garments in there, then they might possibly sell.
I think that it's about the look, and I think when you break it down, the items aren't necessarily that special, but it is about the look, and the look has impact. So, but I mean, there's still some nice pieces. Like I like the artwork on the mesh stuff.
Yeah,
That's Dominic, isn't
Yeah,
it? And he walked
he
for them
does
as well.
great. His drawings are beautiful.
drawings.
I really like them.
That's really nice, and they had the sense of community. They're bringing everyone in. What do you think, Josh? I'm dying to know, because I don't know if this is your Sunday night vibes.
It's not necessarily something that I would be interested in terms of like a commercial point of view. Like, it's not something that I would buy and wear myself, but I think, as Poppy was saying, it is about the look. You've got like the very sort of wearable pieces in there. So like some of these shirts and the jackets and like tailored trousers, they're not like groundbreakingly different, but creating that sort of mood and the energy and the look as a whole, it's sort of...
It does seem like very on trend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
It's
on
not
trend,
necessarily a bad
on
thing.
trend for menswear?
No, exactly, no, not for menswear. But I can't say
For London.
I look at anything and say I have never seen this before, you know?
What I will always applaud, though, is whenever I see a show like that, is the fact that they're using normal people that are buying the clothes, you know, the shapes.
It's the sizing.
The casting is
it's
phenomenal.
Like, the sizing is so much realer than,
it's just a breath of fresh air. Like,
I don't want to see like.
Because I watch shows and I'd want to wear things and I look at it and I think, I'm not the boy that should be wearing this. Like, everyone's so skinny looking. And like, people are like that, that's fine, but I'm not, you know? And it's hard for me to see something and think, I relate to this. And when I see shows like this, it's just like, yeah, I'm happy with what I've got going on because people are liking it, you know? And it's a nice relief for that to be the case.
Yeah.
And I think what's also nice is that they're kind of like turning around the current trend of moving all the menswear to the women's wear fashion weeks, because now you see a lot of like what we could assume are also women's wear designs shown during menswear. So,
what do we think about that in general? Because in my mind, London menswear is and I'm sure in a lot of other people's minds, London menswear is at a bit of a threat because the big guns have left and they've moved to women's wear. So with this being the menswear that we are showcasing, are we in a bit of a predicament? This isn't necessarily Paris, Milan level of commercial, but this is also what makes London so fantastic. And this, like we said before, this is pushing.
London will always be and will always be seen as the creative capital in fashion. I can't imagine it ever changing. And I think it's good that the schedule is clearing just a little bit because it's allowing people to be able to rise up. And it's nice to be able to see the big shows. But the big shows will always be around. And it's the young designers that ultimately bring the new things. So I think although that it might seem scary that the big brands are moving, it's still showing talent, you know? You do need the big brands to bring people in, but it's important that like brands like Art School and Rottingdean Bazaar get shows like this because it's ultimately pushing trends forward and it's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think if, for example, if London Menswear doesn't exist, people like Art School, the duo behind Art School, their clothes are so feminine, what happens then? Do they show with women's wear and then get lost as this new kind of modern menswear powerhouse?
I don't think they're too concerned.
No?
If I'm being honest. Yeah.
Okay.
I just think they're just doing what they want to do.
Okay, that's good, at least. I guess they're safe for now. Should we go on to Rottingdean?
Right.
Which is here. So these guys are amazing in that they always have this crazy fanfare. It's kind of this cut and paste aesthetic, kind of focusing on the banality of Rottingdean town and blowing it and making it fabulous. This is amazing, this We Do Big Sizes t-shirt. I love that so much. And they also had like, what else did they have? They had, oh yeah, there's Liam Hodges.
That woman
so they've got amazing casting as well.
That woman in the middle is incredible. Her name's Charity Shop Sue. So if anyone on Facebook, Google Charity Shop Sue, she'll kill you off. She's amazing. But like the fact that she was in that, I was just so shocked because it just shows that they're looking at things that you find on Facebook too. And it's really relatable for me. I was quite excited. That's
good though. I always think it's good when there's an element of relatability in a show. Well, you already had that with Art School because your pals are in there. But what do you guys think of this? Is this modern menswear?
I think this is modern, but in a different sense to Art School. Art School was modern because it was challenging the concept of gender fluidity and what's menswear and what's women's wear. This is taking something that's quite kind of mundane, and to me, it's saying a lot about the consumer culture of fashion because you've got things that are made up of price labels and the things with like sale, like plastered across the front of them. And also you've got, like with some of the earlier looks, you have like the whole idea about using models of like different like body types and body shapes and stuff. There's been a lot of things over the past few years about models being too skinny and like models of certain sizes being banned for being too skinny and influencing young people. And this is really refreshing because you've got some sort of people of larger stature who are modeling, and it's sort of a modern kind of concept that not all models have to be like stick thin and sort of like size 0 or whatever. And it's like a really good thing, I think, for the fashion industry to be acknowledging and sort of actively encouraging as well.
I think the Man Show has always been really good for that.
Yeah.
And Oh, sorry, that's Julie Verhoeven on the left there.
Yeah, I read about her. She was saying that she was absolutely like so chuffed that she was asked to walk it, and I found it so lovely.
I think she's actually one of their tutors, but I don't know where I got that from, so that fact check that might not be right.
Fabulous.
But this again, let's just go back to, sorry to be boring, but if we're thinking of like the future of London menswear and how we survive as a city, is this commercial? Does this appeal to anyone but? Does this appeal to the people outside of London? Because obviously we all love this. We find this creative and this gives us a buzz and the show's always amazing. And this reminds us how fabulous London menswear is. But is it enough?
It kind of has me scratching my head because I don't know. But also at the same time, I'm quite happy that something is doing that for me because but I've always found that they've always found a way to take something like the price labels, and when you've gone 3 months later to Selfridges, 6 months later to go have a look at what they've got, they've always found a way to make it somewhat commercial. Like they did the rubber glove t-shirts, and
yeah, those were great.
They were so cool.
This really made me laugh out loud because at one point I started thinking, well, why would you want to like hide your entire body in stickers? And then I thought that's going to be one hell of a wax. And I thought perhaps you could use like scented stickers. That might be interesting. Like,
Yeah.
How could you take it
It's
from there?
just a whole new thought of working. I just think it's really clever.
It is super fun. What do you think, Poppy?
Well, I think it's great to look at. I just don't know how you sell it. Like, it's because it's as a collection, it really works. When you break the pieces down, I think it's hard to like attract market in Asia or anything like that, which obviously all the tracksuits in London, they do that. So it is more of a fine art brand. For me, it's fine art.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it any less special. I think it's great.
I think they're essential.
Exactly.
But at the same time, we always need to have that constant.
When you're asking what the future of menswear is, it's like this
constantly
isn't the future of menswear in the sense that it is now.
I don't know whether they're selling these pieces or not in the next season, but I do think there's emblematic things within each look that could be turned into something that could sell, which is quite nice.
Like
Yeah, I
these
love
bottle caps, is that what that is? Melted.
No,
Where
I
are
thought
we?
they were like 2 pennies stitched into the fabric.
But I mean, you could
That's
make
amazing.
that. You could make that wearable, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I'd wear that.
Yeah, and
It's nice to see something move on from like the Christopher Shannon show as well, because they did the makeup for that.
Yeah, they did the
with
flags, didn't they?
And they've pulled it across into a t-shirt. And
I do think this is so fun, and everyone that I've spoken to is at the show literally is beaming ear to ear when they're like, it gave me such joy, it was so much fun, and I think it was Sunday morning, and it was just like, this is what London's about, and it's so important to have these shows to remind us that
it's not boring.
It's not always tracksuits, but like we just said, you need.
But it's like you'd rather go to a show like that, wouldn't you? Well, I would. I'd rather see that. I'd rather go see that than go see tracksuits because that's more of a show. And tracksuits are more interesting to look at if they're interesting close up.
I just keep laughing at that one of Harry holding
The Naomi Campbell,
It's
I know,
just so funny.
so good. The Instagrams on that was just hilarious. So funny. But that kind of wit and like just humour in their clothes and not taking it too seriously. And he had, was it Finn, the word Finn tattooed, not tattooed,
was he
written on
the
his
final
back.
look?
Yeah, so he was the final look of Rossini Bazaar. That's so fun. And I'd wear that dress
It's cute.
with Naomi
It's stuck to the
Part of
side.
the look.
stuck to the side of me. Although I don't know if that's the best style move. I compare myself to Naomi. Okay, let's go through Stefan one more time for the last one. So I feel a little bit like, I mean, I wasn't there, but I feel a little bit like Stefan was a tiny bit overshadowed when you have those two amazing fanfare and star-studded cast and all these bright colours and amazing textures and funny signs and Naomi Campbell. It's quite difficult to follow that, I think. But I think this is all beautiful.
Absolutely stunning.
Completely agree.
Out of the 3 of them, this is the most commercial to me, at least.
Yeah.
And there's something really important about kind of a silent elegance as well. In comparison to something being so loud and brash, this can come out. And I do sometimes think that when you have that silent elegance, in a way, it shows it's not about the show, it's about selling something that's beautiful. And I think that's what he's really doing.
And some of these techniques are amazing. So there's kind of like, he does these photo prints, so you get the appearance of a texture or a denim that's not actually a denim. These cutouts as well.
We were just talking about the pockets, like being a menswear, and I think there are no pockets on these designs, but then he gave all of them a handbag.
I love the handbags as well.
Oh, the handbags are amazing.
Because from the side, if you kind of like go like this a little bit, you notice that it just kind of looks like a floating bag next to you, rather than you holding one, which I think is fab.
So beautiful. What do you think about this, Josh?
I think, yeah, this one is probably the most commercial because you've got that sort of wearability, whereas some of the other ones probably could be sort of resolved a bit more when it comes to production to actually make them sort of commercial and like wearable. This one has sort of elements that are a bit more sort of like desirable. If you saw these in like a shop and stuff, like you wouldn't, I know like the sort of mainstream kind of outlook of fashion is people see it and they're like, oh, how would you wear that? I wouldn't wear that kind of thing. This has that sort of element of being something that is wearable, and it's still got that sort of attention to detail, and like it's a really strong sort of menswear collection. And yeah, it's just, I think this is like really, really beautiful because it's, again, modern in the use of the fact that it's printed sort of more lightweight, like nylons and stretch fabrics and jerseys that have been printed with something that is, say, kind of like more traditional, has more of like a history to it. So it's almost taking that kind of referencing. Normally you can take like a pocket from like an old garment and bring it to something that's new to sort of modernize it. But this is literally taking a garment in its entirety and printing it onto something that's entirely different. And I think that concept is really, really interesting.
I also find it very clever how he takes like very iconoclastic and very important garments, like the cricket jumper, and he twists them in a sort of way that it's kind of simple if you think about it, but no one else has done it. And I just think that that's a really like a gorgeous way of working. I am really impressed by that show.
I think there's something quite, I keep throwing this word around and it's really ugly but sexy about his designs, in that you're right, these kind of cricket jumpers are cut out and there's a little bit of nipple there and these trousers are very tight. And even just the perspex of I'm guessing it's perspex of the bag is kind of a little bit nodding to something a little bit erotic.
It has a similar, I think it's almost like a similar voice, especially the way that he's pushing through gender with the bags, that art school are saying to, like, very loud, they're shouting it, whereas he is kind of just like whispering.
Yeah.
And I think that's really nice because you can probably see that whisper will gently sort of evolve into more of like an obvious point, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Throughout the collections to come.
Poppy, I'm interested to hear your thoughts because you've got a women's wear and a menswear noggin.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I love how literal it is. I think it's kind of important for fashion to be simple. Otherwise it just overcomplicates, and I think he's taken really simple ideas and made them really beautiful.
You think you could see this in a menswear or a women's wear situation?
Yeah, I think it is quite feminine. Pieces are quite feminine.
I think they're all the man designers are really feminine, but in like a really modern, masculine way.
This is a more like believable that your normal man would wear pieces from this collection.
Yeah.
You know, your run of the mill.
Yeah.
In a way that the others aren't. But the textile, I just love how textural it is. I think it's really important to think about textiles, and it's not done enough.
No. Do you think that's an aspect of menswear that could be?
I think, yeah.
Could be pushed to be more modern, let's say.
100%.
Menswear's just got a bit more room for like
experimentation
still, and I think that's what makes it a more interesting medium, is that there is more ideas in print and knit, and like he's using old materials as well. I think there just is more room for experimentation in a way that women's wear's been overdone in some sense.
So let's have a think, because this is probably the most experimental, I mean, shout out if you can think of anyone else, the most experimental show in menswear. Would you agree? Is there anyone who's a bit more crazy? No, I think...
Yeah, I think so too.
This is like brilliantly mad. But do we think this is...
But of course it's so subjective as well, because it's
That's true.
Crazy in so many ways.
Very true.
Yeah.
I'm using crazy in a positive term. Just
yeah, of course.
But what do we think? Is this... How do we progress from this? So these designers, under Man, they kind of have this room to grow and be a bit more crazy and be a bit more fanfare. But when they go to their own shows, what do we think is going to happen? Do they do the Charles Jeffrey route where they have this amazing show and they kind of push boundaries and it's super exciting, or are they going to go do their own brand and really hone in? So I'd be really interested to see if art school, when they go their own way, if they take it into this kind of brand and then everything suddenly becomes incredibly polished, or like vice versa. What would you like to see? Maureen, I'm going to you.
Oh God. I don't know. I kind of like that I would like to see that they stick to what they're originally doing. I think by becoming polished, it becomes too made and perhaps too constructed. And I kind of like, especially with these, what they're doing, I think it's great to see that they have such a liberty to it. And I think if you make it more about production and about being able to sell, I think it's going to lose some of its message. And I kind of hate to see that happen, really.
I'd like to see Rotterdam Bazaar carry on the way they're going, but putting out emblems out there that can be watered down to sell. So the idea of this look here with the giant sequins, that is so easily transferable into something that someone could buy. And they all have that element, but they just need to keep going on this level of creativity because it is just so fun to see.
Yeah, it is. That's what I'm slightly interested in, is the man bubble allows you to kind of let your freak flag fly. I say that three times. But what happens when they go on their own?
Yeah, well, I think the pure pressure of like being out on your own and having to fund your own business and keep everyone happy and sell kind of also kind of makes you lose your shine a little bit in a way. It makes you kind of want to have to sell things and make things for other people. I think you lose touch of what you went in there for. I think it's always important to cater to other people, but it's about finding that line between where's you and where's everyone else in the world. And it's really like obvious to try and find that line for yourself without trying to lose yourself to everyone else. I think that's important.
Yeah, we have this basically beautiful vessel that's kind of pushing menswear into this new modernity. It's super expressive, super fun, getting everyone really excited. But it just goes back to what we were saying earlier about commercialism and how do you sell, how do you become your brand, how do you pull people to London menswear when Burberry and Co. have disappeared. So rewinding all the way back to education, how do you feel like with your designs, you're doing the same thing? So are you looking to experiment and find a man umbrella, or are you looking to, what's your kind of dream goals? Is it a man umbrella where you can experiment and push?
Yeah, I think for me it probably would be, because you never really get this sort of freedom again. Like Man gives you the opportunity to really experiment and push boundaries and really make that statement. And I think with 3 seasons under Man, you have the opportunity to really explore a concept, push it. And that's like the platform. If you make enough of a statement and you're memorable enough and things, then that can sort of help you go on to have your own sort of success when you go your own way. But it's just a really, really beneficial thing to be part of Man, because it's almost like you've got that support behind you without having to sort of fend for yourself as such. Because if you were to just go in like straight from graduating without any kind of funding, you'd be like, having worked for sort of some smaller designers and designers that are trying to sort of start up their own thing, you don't actually realize how much thought and energy and time and sort of processes go into these. Like, people will see them on the runway and it'll be like, I don't know, 5 minutes of like a beautiful show, but it would have taken like months and months and months and so much money and sort of sitting up doing like tax returns and stuff that young designers don't necessarily consider when they're still studying. So I think that this support and the system that we've got in place in London for young designers is really, really beneficial, and it's something that I would like to do to really push my own work and to sort of create these beautiful shows, but then make a name for myself and have pieces in here, like in art school and stuff, that are more commercial and are desirable to sort of get the ball rolling, but then you sort of learn as you go and not really, like, I sort of learned through experience sort of thing, and I think this is the best way of doing it. So, yeah.
What about you, Poppy?
Agree.
What about me?
What about you? I know you're...
I think I'm a bit early days.
I'm in early days, but you're umming and ahhing over menswear, women's wear, and when you see this kind of stuff, what does that push you to? Do you want to put more pockets on things and be like, ah, crap, I really need to start getting stuff commercial? Or do you think...
I think it's kind of, you can't know who you're selling to really until you've made a collection. I mean,
True.
You don't know who's going to buy it. And I think once you know kind of where you sit and who's interested, it's easier to kind of be more commercial, I guess. I don't know, because you might be a menswear but actually be really just traditional menswear, and you might attract a massive women's wear market. And then it doesn't mean that you're going to like Martine, exactly. Like, her clothing is so relatable for women as well, and she now definitely considers that when she's designing. So I think it's great to have the support so that you can experiment, so that you can grow in a bit less pressure. So yeah, I think this is kind of, at the moment, one of the only ways to do it. I mean, you don't really see brands emerging out of the blue with no support from anyone. Like, there's just not you don't have money. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's great. And it's definitely where you have to, essential. That's the word.
What about you, Connor? What do you think when you see this? Is this kind of...
I love what Man's doing, and I think that they're giving plenty of people a voice to be able to do what they want to do. And I'd love to explore it in the future if I was to ever get to that point, which is what I'd like to do now, but who knows. I just think I don't know, if I was to do it, I think it'd be nice to see someone that's pushing femininity for the feminine boys out there in a way that isn't tongue-in-cheek and it isn't making fun of it in a way. Something a bit serious. Like, I live my life too. I shop at Tesco and I can't find anything in Top Man to wear, you know? And like, I look at things that, like, I look at Charles Jeffrey and I look at Palomo and I look at Art School, and yet it's fabulous, but it's fabulous to the point that I couldn't live in it. And I want something that I can wear that's got a kind of an elegance to it, that's for the people out there that have, like, grown up the way I have, like being in a very masculine, small-minded area and going to a boys' school and being like one of the feminine boys. I want people to be the same, and I want to inspire these people, you know? I think it's important that when we're talking about the femme subject in Man, it's like, I'm sick of seeing it done in a way that's meant to be funny. It makes me quite sad, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so to summarise, a bit of a mixed messages from everyone. What would we like to see from the menswear shows in general next season? More experimental, non-binary pushing of
liberation,
menswear modernity, or do you want to see less pockets? Do we want to see what do we want to see?
Just more creativity, just more.
More creativity.
They're already giving it us, but we want more of it.
You want more. You're hungry for it now.
I just love it.
What do you mean when you say creativity?
Just being unapologetically your design aesthetic. I think it's really important, especially at this point. They're so new, and they've got support. You've got no excuse to cater for everyone else. Just do you, and it's nice to see that. I think I see that in all three of them, that they're not compromising for anyone else other than their own design aesthetic. Yeah.
But I also think it's just three completely different designers, which is
very
so
different.
Good. Like, you don't want to see that. There's no way you mistake one for the other. Like, I think that's great. You don't want to be seeing a lot of the same. There's three. You've got to like be choosing people that really say something different. So yeah.
So for next season, what would you like to see from London Menswear?
I think that it's very like clear. There's two different things going on, and there's something in the middle that's missing for me.
Any idea what that is?
I think it is unique. I like the functional aspect of menswear, and for me, if you take the people out of them, for me it is women's wear.
Okay.
But that's me.
Okay.
I think it's that that you sell that, it's only if the exact same people are buying it. Does it maintain the same brand idea?
Yeah, that's very true.
it's about the character.
I don't think it translates onto a rail in Selfridges.
Yeah, like if I wear that, it says something completely different to who's wearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there does have to kind of have a message that can be seen in the clothes as well as the character.
Josh, what about you? What would you like to see from London Menswear?
I think there's like a lot of really interesting and exciting like attitudes and concepts that are like present within the shows, but it just, again, like it just needs to be pushed further and just continued, because it's sort of like they're trying to make a statement and the statement is effective, but if you keep on like making that statement and pushing it further and experimenting more and sort of sampling more and stuff, then it can sort of evolve into something, because design, you don't just make like one amazing collection and then you're sorted. It's almost like a seed. You like plant the seed and then it'll sort of grow and evolve and like turn into something that eventually will be like amazing. Not to say that these aren't amazing, but there's certain like snippets of this that could really be pushed and developed more, and I think that's something that I quite like to see over the next few seasons. Yeah.
Amazing. And last but not least.
Well, what I think is so great about Men is that, like you said before, they're all three very distinct designers, and I think menswear in general could take like a memo from that and like show more versatility, take those ideas further and develop them really. I don't really have to add anything to what they have all said, because I agree. It's just, I think it's a different take on how you, menswear really, of course.
I think that's a lovely note to end on. So, in summary, menswear, look to man for your guide on modern modernity. Modern modernity, that's an awful note to end on. On the modern menswear. We'll give them a round of applause to end, shall we?